Hello, everyone. R P Davis from Kabouter Games here with another of our Meet the Creators installments, where we sit down and have a few words with the creative team behind Villains Next Door, our book that's crowdfunding on Indiegogo right now. And today, we are very privileged to have with us novelist and game designer Alan Tucker, all the way from snowy Colorado. How's things, Alan?
Well, not so snowy today, but it has been occasionally. How are you
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, it's damp and that kind of bone-chilling damp here in the Netherlands, and I'd rather have snow, tell you the truth. So
doing?
so let's run down the list of questions that I've been asking everyone, and I'm sure I'm kind of thinking the first couple are gonna be a little bit different for you. The first one is, when did you get started, or how did you get started in role-playing games?
Well, back when dinosaurs walked the earth in the early 80s, uh, my some friends of mine actually played, and for a while I just sort of scoffed at that and thought, that's stupid. I don't want to do that at all. And
Nerds. Nerds.
yeah, dang it. What's the matter with those people anyway? But eventually, I did cave and decided to play, and of course, opened up a whole wonderful world. And wasn't long after that that I decided to start DMing and everything else, and just went whole hog. So uh,
Nice.
yeah, so I'm a lifer. Although I had a long period in the middle where I didn't do it at all just because of life. Um,
Yep. Been
got
there.
back into it around fifth edition after I was an empty nester, and haven't looked back for sure. So
Awesome. And how did you make the transition into writing things or creating things for other people to consume?
well, I've always dabbled in writing, and then let's see, I think around 2009, 2008, somewhere in there, I started writing novels, and have several fantasy and science fiction novels that I've published. And then when it came around again, I was an empty nester and decided, well, heck, let's get back into this D&D thing, and picked up fifth edition and got started on that, and found the DM's Guild, and thought, well, shoot, this is stuff I'm already doing with writing novels and all that, and so I can just roll everything together and do it all, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah, that's basically your story mirrors mine in many ways, though I have never finished that first novel. the Yeah, it's just that the kind of
The
thing.
first one's the toughest one, I can tell you.
Oh God, I've been looking at it and getting mad at it and throwing it in a corner for at least 10 years. So maybe I'll finish it one day. Probably not. Probably not. Um, so for you, you should have a fairly well established idea then of what makes a person a villain. Tell us about that.
There's for me, there's levels of villainy, but I think really at the root of all villains is a um, and it again as a level of this, but a lack of regard or respect for others. There are obviously people that have that to a higher degree than others, and then there's also a level of ambition, I think, that involved in that. So if someone who has no lack of regard or respect for others and a high ambition, maybe would be something like a James Bond villain or something like that.
Right.
Uh, Whereas somebody who just doesn't really care for other people, or doesn't really care about much about what happens to them, and doesn't have a lot of ambition, may fall into this category of this villain next door in many cases, that they're just not a nice person, and has maybe come across something that has enabled them to uh, exert that force into the world a little bit more than other people. But
Yeah, that makes
that,
sense. So it runs the gamut from your casual road rager all the way up
yeah,
to Blofeld.
yeah, exactly.
It's a broad spectrum. How did that translate into one of the villains you wrote for the project?
Well, I'll talk about Elam because that was kind of the more fun one that I did. But the my initial thought for him was, what would happen if you were got drunk in the pub one night and were stumbling home and you ran into a genie and you had to word that wish while you were blottoed, and Elam didn't do very well with it. Um,
I
but he
cannot
was,
wait for people to see this. I mean, the draft is. I mean, yeah, he's a bastard, but I mean, he's truly a villain. But the means by which he comes by his villainy is, oh my heavens, it's worth it, ladies and gentlemen. It's totally worth it. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm
So
sorry.
he was
Continue.
just somebody. He was just somebody that was, probably your basic nerd at school. He got picked on, bullied a lot when he was growing up, and had a lot of repressed anger and everything else. And
Give me a
finally,
swirl. Give me a swirly, will ya? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so once this accident happened, he took him a little while to kind of figure out how it worked, but then he decided to make it work to his advantage as much as he could.
Right. Right. Yeah. It strikes me as you and I first worked together, as I recall, on one of your products called "A Funny Thing Happened."
It
Uh,
was, yeah. So a cleric and a vampire walk into a tavern.
that's it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
you and I first worked together on one of those because there were a couple of those as I recall, and yeah,
Hmm.
just I like the way your brain works. So,
Well, thank you.
how can speaking of which, how can people find you on the internet? Find your other work?
Well, I've got several, I think over, oh geez, well over 30 things on the DMs Guild now, and several things on drive through as well. My personal website is alantucker.net, and you can find me on Twitter at Tucker Author.
Everything will be in the show notes anyway, so
Okay,
easy to click on it. That's great. Well, Alan, it's been a pleasure to work with you
absolutely.
again and to talk to you. So I don't think we've ever spoken face to face. I think it's all been via keyboard, and
Mhm.
it's been an absolute pleasure. And this is the point, ladies and gentlemen, where I do the standard thing on YouTube. If you've ever seen a YouTube video, you know what's coming. You like, subscribe, ring the bell, that kind of stuff.
Wherever those things
Yeah,
are,
I
yeah.
appreciate that. If you're a backer of Villains Next Door, we thank you for your support. If you're considering backing Villains Next Door, I wish you'd go down into the show notes and click the link to the Indiegogo campaign and give us your support. We'd very much appreciate it. And we hope this little conversation has helped turn the tide of your opinion of us and our work. We look forward to talking to you again very soon here on the Kabouter Games channel. And yeah, for now, I guess, Alan, let's say goodbye. Goodbye.